Howdy folks, welcome to another episode of Mingles with Jingles, and of course since this is, I actually completely forgot about this. If it wasn't for the guys on the Discord posting announcements, I would have missed this Q&A for March. I'd completely forgotten that it was actually March, and I'm sitting there, I'm looking at the desktop, and I'm, oh, there's a notification there on Discord. Well, oh shit, yeah, that's today, isn't it? So well done to my mods for reminding not only everybody who turned up in the audience to attend the Saltmine Discord Q&A for March, but also for reminding me that I had to do the Saltmine Discord Q&A for March. So welcome to everybody who turned up in person and has posted their questions. We'll get on to them in just a second. And if you're watching this as Monday's episode of Mingles with Jingles, hope you all had a great weekend. Now forget it, because it's Monday. And on that bombshell, I'm going to move straight over to the questions, and we're going to crack straight on. And the first one comes from Akiaki Kiyakaha. He says, "Good evening, High Admiral Jingles. I was wondering if you'd heard of..." Oh, come on, Germany. What is that? So you know how the Germans seem to think that just stringing a whole bunch of existing words together creates a new word? I'll attempt to pronounce this. Have you ever heard of Planeten-Verteidigungskanonen-Kommandant, or PVKK for short? Yeah, I have actually heard of it, yeah. And if you have, you plan on getting it when it comes out. Yeah, I am, actually. He's provided a Steam link for it. In this game, you step in at the role of a cannon pilot for an autocratic regime confined to a defence bunker. Your mission, manually control a massive planetary defence cannon to fend off an ongoing interplanetary invasion. Master the various systems, protect your homeworld, core gameplay, interact with a retro tech cockpit filled with... Yeah. I actually saw this a couple of months back. There was a whole bunch of, I think, German games that were being promoted on Steam, and this was one of them. It's not available yet. The release date's to be announced, but there was all kind. I think there may have been a demo of it, but I saw a bunch of people who did get to play it, and I was watching it, and it looks really, really cool. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. It's kind of like Papers, Please, but you control a big gun instead of a passport stamp. There's clearly more going on behind the scenes than you're aware of. Somebody's not telling you everything. It's all very, very... There's really a very... It's one of those things that's really difficult to describe, but there's all kinds of videos available on it. PVKK. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the actual German name of the thing. But yeah, it did look really cool and very interesting. You basically control this big gun. There's every now and then some ships come in, you have to shoot them down. And you're kind of racing against the clock. Like I said, it's really hard to describe. But go and watch some videos on it. It's I believe you can wishlist it on Steam. The release date isn't available yet, but it's definitely coming out this year because it looked pretty feature complete a couple of months ago when I was watching videos on it. That's PVKK. Yeah, definitely one that I'm interested in. It did pop up on my radar, and I have been waiting for it. Honestly, seriously, these days, if you want innovation, because it's one of those games where you think, what kind of crack were they smoking when they thought up the idea for this one? And you just don't get that in AAA gaming anymore. They always play it safe. If you want anything really innovative, you've got to look at indie games, and this is definitely one that is on my Steam wish list, and I'm looking forward to this one coming out. Anyway, moving on to the second question. Thank you for that one. This is from Miner393. Whoa. Okay, so this is, Dear Overlord Jingles, since you took the knighthood last month, your parents have decided to go full traditional and are now attempting to arrange a marriage for you. However, due to their miscommunication with each other, they are independently trying to set you up with multiple women at the same time. So, do you accept the first one they offer, wait a while as they start creating a harem for you, or do you find a wife for yourself? I don't know, option 2 sounds pretty good. Although then again, I mean, that's the kind of thing. You know, a whole bunch of wives, fantastic. That's the sort of thing that sounds really, really cool when you're young and stupid. As you get a bit older, trying to keep up with a whole... No, God, I don't know. Or do you find a wife for yourself? He says, honestly, I'm perfectly happy being single. There's the old story about... How does it go? Once upon a time, there was a handsome prince who fell in love with a beautiful princess, and he asked her to marry him. And she said no. And the prince lived happily ever after. And he went to rock concerts, and he wore skinny jeans, and he went out drinking with his friends, and he rode motorbikes, and he did everything that he wanted to do, and he lived happily ever after. And I think that describes me perfectly. I'm absolutely content just being by myself, just me and the cats. I'm perfectly happy that way. Next question. Thank you for that one, though. Next question comes from Safa. He says, actual question in the last two part. Okay, so here we go. Dear wisest and mightiest of known kind among the stars of our galaxy, may your travels give us many worlds to colonise in your name and worship. Let us enshrine your happy little accidents with starports and settlements. Yeah, I think there's an Elite Dangerous question coming here. Your shipwreck shall be the place for our prayer that we may wreck our ships as spectacularly as you do. Bless our SRVs with loss of power and make them tumble across the vast fields of alien moons. There's definitely an Elite Dangerous question coming. Oh, you who are so wise, tell us, how shall we colonise the Elite Dangerous galaxy in upcoming patches? Make us the architects of your will. So, yeah, I haven't been playing Elite, but I have been keeping up to date with the news. And the Thargoid War is over. Oh, yeah, he continues. The Thargoid War is over. We're rebuilding and expanding with the new technology we harvested from them, which includes player-created outposts. Ah, that's right, yeah. Starports and surface settlements in systems they claimed. Unfortunately, DT Virginis with the planet Jingles and the moon's circumflexes and quickie baby is already settled. But will you be claiming any other system to make us build your empire from? Unrelated to that, as a former sailor, have you ever heard of underwater rugby, and would you give it a try if you find a local club? A sport where you need to wrestle the ball out of the opponent's hands and put it into a basket at the bottom of the 4-metre deep swimming pool. It's played using fins, a snorkel, and a diving mask. Well, to answer your second question, hell no. Underwater rugby? I actually played rugby. When I was at boarding school, okay. Bit of backstory here. At the age of 12, we emigrated to South Africa. We went from Newcastle in the northeast of England to Newcastle in the province of Natal in South Africa. My stepfather was working for ISCOR, the South African Iron and Steel Corporation. Worked there for about a year, got an offer of a better job in Swaziland. We moved to Swaziland, a place called Mhlamanyati in the Lesotho forest. The schools in Swaziland the primary schools were great, the high schools not so much. So what everybody tended to do was send their kids to boarding school in South Africa. Now, South Africa, rugby, very, very popular. And I played rugby at high school in South Africa. I didn't play many games because I don't think I ever managed to finish a match conscious. I got knocked senseless in every rugby match I ever played. So I didn't like rugby much. And the idea of doing the same thing but underwater, you've got to be kidding. So no. But anyway, back to your Elite Dangerous question. Yeah, so what I don't know if you're aware, but because I used to do some quite extensive Elite Dangerous coverage until Odyssey came out, which was a bit of a cluster. But I did actually get the opportunity to name a surface settlement when Odyssey came out, and I can't remember the name of the system. I mean, I know I've got it bookmarked in game, but I can't specifically remember the name of the system. But I did get to name a settlement, a surface starport, and it was called Port. Oh God, I forgot the name. What was the place? Chatham Dock. That was it. I called it Chatham Dock, named after the original Royal Navy dockyard. And it is out there, and if possible, that is absolutely 100% where I would found. I might have to start getting back into Elite Dangerous, actually, because with the Thargoid War over and this whole colonisation thing going on, it does look really, really interesting. And they've made a lot of updates and improvements to the actual planet surface stuff that came with Odyssey, which was just janky as all hell on original release. It wasn't a particularly successful expansion, but they're doing great stuff with the Thargoid War. That's all over now, and I think if I was going to get back into it, I might have to give it a go. It would be, and again, I can't remember the name of the system or the planet where Chatham Dock is, but I have been there and visited it because obviously, it's one that I got to name. But I would put a settlement there. I might have to get back into it and see if I can actually do that. He says, is there a special faction attached to it? At the time, no. Not that I'm aware of. Anyway, thank you. Yeah, Elite Dangerous. Planet colonizer. They're basically expanding the sphere of human influence after the Thargoid War, and it's all player-driven, as everything in Elite Dangerous is. So anyway, next question from Yamatog 2. Almighty Overlord Jingles, do you have any recent book recommendations? He actually has one himself. Traitor Patriots, the Nazi Conspiracy to Kill the Gentleman whose name we're not allowed to say on YouTube. Written by Jürgen Bollmeyer, with a foreword by Indy Nidell. Oh yeah, and Spartacus Olsen. Yeah, I know that. I actually live streamed with Indy once. Really nice fella. of Time Ghost History, the people behind the Great War, World War II in real time, yep, the Korean War and Sabaton History YouTube channels, gives a detailed overview of the many attempts from the German military to overthrow the Austrian gentleman who didn't like to mix colours in his paints between 1934 and 1944. He's reading it right now and it's really good. I don't actually have any recent book recommendations because I haven't actually been reading an awful lot lately, which is kind of surprising because normally when I go to bed at night, I spend a couple of hours just reading myself to sleep. But I have been reading a lot of science fiction from a guy called Adrian Tchaikovsky, who's written some incredibly good stuff. And I did just get a notification that he's got a new book out, which I haven't actually looked at yet. But that's probably going to be the next thing that I read. But yeah, Traitor Patriots, a Nazi conspiracy to kill the Austrian gentleman whose name you're not allowed to say on YouTube. I'll have to give that a look. Thank you for the recommendation. Next question from Make-A-Whoosh Foundation. Hey Jingles, let me take the chance and say welcome to the newest member of your family. Scratch anyone who appreciates behind the ears from me. And of course use this as an excuse for extensive cat. Oh yeah, Nino, the new cat. He's just amazing. He's such a good boy. We had no... Obviously you introduce a new cat to a bunch of other cats. There's going to be problems because they're not going to like each other at first. But none of the problems came from Nino. He was just such a friendly cat to the other two. Juicy, because she's a mean old woman. She still doesn't like him very much, but she's not growling and hissing at him anymore. And when I put the food down for them in the morning, they all quite happily eat together. Akazuki, the reason I got Nino was because she's old. She's 14 this year, and she just doesn't want to put up with Akazuki's shit. And Akazuki, I mean, she's 6 now, but she's still quite young, and she likes to play. So I thought I need to get a playmate for Akazuki, because, I mean, you know, she's 14, she's not going to be around forever, and she doesn't want to play with Akazuki anyway. So I got Nino. He's about the same age as Akazuki. He's 5. He's only just turned 5. Be careful what you wish for, because he loves to play, and he loves Akazuki, and he just wants to play with her all the time. And now she knows how Juicy feels. I mean, they do chase each other around, and they do play, and they do the zoomies and all that, but she gets tired of it now. He's such a sweet, just affectionate, great little cat, and he's learning all kinds of bad habits from Akazuki as well. It's like I go into the kitchen and Akazuki will jump up onto the kitchen island and start meowing because she wants treats. And didn't take long for Nino to learn that he can jump up onto the kitchen island, and his meows, he harmonises with her. It's like a cat chorus, because he's learned that if he does that, they get treats. Every time I go outside, come back in, Akazuki will sometimes be there at the door waiting to try to sneak out, rush outside, and he's learned to do that as well. So he's a little menace, but he's a really, really sweet little cat. And I realise I just haven't actually gotten around to answering your question yet. Oh, here it is. Buy once, cry once. Sorry about that. You know the saying, where did it prove true for you? Where the cry about the price was worth not crying every time you use it? When did it betray you, paying premium for shit? And by the way, did you follow the NVIDIA 50 series release? Yeah, release disaster. Oh, I mean, you know, my 5090 is working fine. It's got the correct number of, I can't even remember what this thing stands for, ROPS. There's a component in it that some, like, I can't even remember the percentage, but basically NVIDIA, if there was just a way for them to screw up this launch, they found a way to do it. First with what was basically a paper launch, where they had basically no units for sale. And then there was the 12-volt power thing melting. Again, fingers crossed, touch wood, mine's been fine, but I don't exactly, you know, push mine. And then, of course, missing components with something like up to 11% worse than advertised performance on a card that you won't get any change from $2,000 for, even if you can find it at MSRP. I mean, geez. So yeah, if there was a way for them to screw up the launch, they found it. They managed to do it. Luckily, mine's been fine. Oh yeah, and AMD have just announced, because they're not competing with the high-end NVIDIA stuff anymore. They're going for the sort of mid-range and budget level. But AMD's new cards have come out, and that's the thing about AMD. AMD never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity, and yet they appear to have gotten it right with their sort of mid-range compared to NVIDIA cards coming out at roughly the same performance, or in some cases superior raster performance, because NVIDIA have gone all in on the ray tracing and the neural AI and all that shit, whereas AMD have just concentrated on making cards that do good graphics at a cheaper price and using less power. The ray tracing performance isn't going to be as good, but I mean, honestly, who cares? I mean, I've shown you videos in the past where I'm showing you the difference between games like Cyberpunk and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, where you crank everything up to maximum, and it looks good, But if you want, even with an RTX 5090, if you want good frame rates, you have to enable frame generation. And frame generation is one of those things that it will look good if you already have a good base frame rate, because then you don't suffer from input latency. But if you've already got a good frame rate, you don't need to use frame generation. So if you don't have a good frame rate, that's when you need to use frame generation, but then you get all kinds of shimmering artifacts and horrible input latency. It's just... And then, you look at the same game, you turn the ray tracing off, you drop it down to medium settings, and to all visual intents and purposes, unless you're actually stopping and examining details, which is something that you just don't do when you're playing a game, you can't tell the difference. And it doesn't require a $2,000 graphics card. So I think AMD are probably going to be doing really, really well because they're focusing on raster performance. And in games like Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, which uses the Cry engine or a modified version of it, it doesn't even use ray tracing. So having all of these fancy, CUDA cores and ray tracing cores won't do you any good in a game like that because it just doesn't use them. So, yeah, I've gotten well off topic here. What was the actual question? Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was buy once, cry once. Yeah, I'm thinking... I would probably have to say the 50... Well, the whole new PC. Jesus, it was expensive. But I can write it off against tax. So that's, I've forgotten how to speak English. Wow. Because it's not just for playing games on. Well, it is for playing games on, but it's also for playing games and editing the video and sticking them up on YouTube. It's what I do for a living. So I'm in the fortunate position of being able to buy a kick-ass gaming PC and reduce my taxes as a result. So it was eye-wateringly expensive, and I did cry at the price, but it's worth it. 64 gigabytes of RAM, 8 terabytes of SSD. That was the biggest. I mean, yeah, sure, it's got like a 9800 X3D CPU, which is currently the best gaming CPU you can get. It's got an RTX 5090, which is currently the best GPU you can get for gaming. But I don't really play much that stresses it. I mean, right now, I'm sitting here recording my desktop, and I'm using anything up to 7% of the CPU and 1% of the GPU. And most of the games that I play, I cap at 60 frames per second anyway, because my monitor only has a 60 hertz refresh rate. And the GPU never goes above 50 degrees or uses more than 30%. When I let it loose, yeah, sure, it'll utilize 100% of the GPU and the temperatures will go up to about 65 degrees. But it's fine. So I've forgotten where I'm going with it. Yeah, oh man, this is another shit thing about getting old. You start talking about something and halfway through you forget where you were going with it. Cry about. I have to go back to the question and remind myself what I'm talking about. Was the price worth not? Yeah. I mean, like I said, very, very expensive PC. Oh, that was it. That's what I was going to talk about. So all the different components, they are fantastic. But most of the time, amazing CPU, amazing GPU. Most of the time, I'm not actually playing anything that pushes the CPU or the GPU. But the big thing I found, the biggest impact is having that 8 terabyte of SSD, because standard storage allotment on most PCs that you buy is about 2 terabyte. You might have a 500 gigabyte boot drive and then a 2 terabyte actual storage drive. And that just isn't enough. Certainly not for me. I found that when I was playing Indiana Jones, I was recording so much footage, and it's recorded in 4K. I compress it down to 2K for YouTube. I mean, I could upload in 4K, but it takes more than twice as long. 2K is fine. Most people still watch everything at 1080p monitors, so there's not a lot of point in uploading videos in 4K for like 2% of your audience. 2K, a lot of people are starting to switch over to 2K now, so I figure that's a nice compromise. But what I was finding was I'd be recording Indiana Jones, and I'd start to run out of disk space, so I'd start having to delete games. So, all right, Space Marine 2, I'll delete that. Red Dead Redemption 2, I'm going to have to delete that to make space. So the only things that I actually had installed on the PC were World of Warships, World of Tanks, and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And that was purely because I was playing Indiana Jones and recording it, and I needed World of Tanks and World of Warships for doing videos on it. And because there's just so much footage being recorded that you just run out of space. And then I started playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And I got about, 12, 15 hours into it. Really, really enjoying the game, but I didn't dare record any of it on the old PC. But when then I got the new PC, so I restarted playing Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, and I could just hit the record button, play the game, and forget about it. I currently have 2 terabytes of video for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And I haven't even started making videos on it yet, which I will be doing soon as I finish the Indiana Jones playthrough, because that game is incredible. Well, both Indiana Jones and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, but especially Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. That game's just amazingly good. And I can just record and play to my heart's content. I can sit there for 8 hours just recording and playing and not have to worry that I'm running out of disk space and I'm going to have to delete something, or I'll have to stop playing the game and then just save my progress and wait a month until I finished Indiana Jones. And then I can reclaim all the disk space from the Indiana Jones footage and start playing the game and recording again because I've run out of disk space. So that 8 terabytes of storage has been a massive game changer for me. Going back to the question, when did paying premium for shit, was it not worth it? That's a good one. I'm sure there must have been something that I thought, I'll get the really, really expensive version of that, and it just totally wasn't worth it. And it was probably some premium pre-order version of some game that came with all kinds of useless shit that you didn't actually need and didn't actually improve the playing experience, and really probably should have been included in the base price of the game anyway, because it was available from day one. So they clearly just patched, stuck it behind a paywall in order to screw some extra money out of you. And that's probably happened more times than I'd care to admit. I dare say most of your experience will probably be the same there as well. He's just edited his question and say, age hits hard. Why do you think I asked 3 questions in one? You're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Because this happens to me. I mean, it's been happening to me for quite a while. I remember I was still in the Navy and I could honestly get halfway through a conversation. It's because I just think too fast. Apparently it's a form of ADHD where you're actually processing the question and you're thinking ahead faster than you can talk. and so you get to the point where there's this disjoint between what you're saying and what you're thinking, and then you just forget what you were saying. This is what happens to me, and it happens more as I get older. But anyway, next question, Tank 50. Oh, this must be an M1 Garand update. It is an M1 Garand update. So the gunsmith getting the barrel fitted. Should be ready before the next Q&A. Okay, good news. Here's his second restaurant. Oh, he's doing an Winchester M1917. The other rifle used by the United States Expeditionary Force in World War I alongside the M1903. So he's got some pictures of it. And now he has an actual question. Has there ever been something you've done that others have told you just walk away from, but you surged forward anyway, that you ultimately felt good about? He got that from both the M1917 and his M1. P.S. Yes, that rifle you asked about in Indiana Jones was a Carcano. Yes, yeah. So there was a sort of box magazine, like a carbine version of a rifle that I don't think I did pick up in Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And it was in an Italian base, and I thought, is that a Carcano? And a number of people have said, yeah, it was. Tank 50 US used to have one, but he traded it officially for a short magazine Lee Enfield No. 1 Mark III Star. an arguably better rifle. There's no arguably about it. The Carcano was good, but the Lee Enfield was amazing. Oh, and you can actually get ammo for it. Yeah. That's the thing with a lot of these exotic, difficult to get, very very nice rifles, is that they use like proprietary calibers of ammunition. And it's not that you can't get the ammo for it, it's just that it's in short supply and it tends to be really expensive. Actually, ammunition just tends to be... I don't know when... That's been true for a couple of years now, hasn't it? I know there's a lot of gun channels on YouTube. For a while now, they've been crying about the cost of ammunition. I don't know what happened. When did it suddenly become really expensive? Actually, that reminds me of a Chris Rock joke. I think it was in his Bigger and Blacker show, when he was talking about gun control. This was good. He said, you don't need gun control, you need bullet control. If every bullet cost $1,000, there'd be no more innocent bystanders. You see a guy lying there with 6 bullets in him, you know he had it coming. Right, anyway, yeah. Okay, so moving on to steamed yams. Jingles, you've been given a big budget and given the job of producing the next big blockbuster based on a story from history. Which event or person are you choosing, and who's your director and dream cast? Ooh, okay. Well, it would be a World War II movie, and you know what it would be? It'd be the story of General Bill Slim and the 14th Army. Well, he wasn't a general, actually. He was a field marshal. Everybody knows about Field Marshal Bernard Law Montgomery because, he stole all the headlines. But the British Army actually had 2 field marshals in World War II, and most people have never heard of the other one. Because Bill Slim commanded the 14th Army, which was comprised mostly of Indian Army troops, and they fought in Burma and India against the Japanese. And it's just criminal that... Australians know who Bill Slim is because he was the last governor of Australia before they gained independence, I think, because that was the job that he took on after World War II. And he was well regarded, for a POM by the Australians. They all loved him. Because he was just that kind of guy. He took the 14th Army, which had gotten its arse kicked all the way from Mandalay back to India by the Japanese, and he trained them and taught them to fight surrounded. Because it was the case with, a lot of Western armies, not just the British, that if they got surrounded or if the road got cut so they couldn't get supplies in, they would just surrender. But that was just the fact of fighting the Japanese in the jungle in World War II, because they were masters in infiltration. They would get through terrain that wasn't supposed to be passable, cut the road behind you and force you to surrender. So he trained the 14th Army to fight surrounded and to win. And he took an army that was beaten, horribly beaten. Like they just suffered strings of defeats one after the other and got forced all the way back to India. And the Japanese did actually invade India at one point. And that's where the 14th Army held the line and then pushed them all the way back. And it was all to do with Bill Slim's training and leadership. And I think that'd make an amazing movie because he was an amazing field marshal. They called them the Forgotten Army because Montgomery was taking all of the news with the war in North Africa and then in Europe. But Bill Slim did a better job with fewer resources against an equally tenacious and determined enemy. And nobody knew about it. So that's what I would do. The story of Bill Slim and the 14th Army. And there's a fantastic book you can read, by the way. Going back to an earlier question, do I have any book recommendations? Uncle Bill, because that's what his troops called him. Everybody loved him because he really, really cared about his troops. He would tell his officers, at the end of the day, before you sort yourselves out, you will go around and make sure that your men have everything that they need. Take care of any of their problems, and then you can look after yourself. Put his men first and foremost, and they absolutely loved him for it. They would have gone to the end of the earth for anybody for that man. He was a talented leader, great general. He was just an amazing fella. Everybody loved him. And unlike people like Montgomery, he came from very, very common beginnings. He was from Birmingham, I think, and he went to grammar school in Birmingham. He wasn't a lord. He didn't have a title. He was just an amazing man, and I'd love to see a movie based on his life. Anyway, how are we doing for time? Oh yeah, no problem. We can answer a few more. This one comes from Mariulo. Greetings to our mighty gnome overlord. was partly influenced by your videos of Akazuki and got myself 2 Maine Coons a couple of years ago. Best decision of my life. Good man. For my question, I want to ask, which are your cat's favourite toys? Mine love any kind of fluffy toy in a string, or these plastic bugs that look like the head of a toothbrush and move on their own. Right. I've tried getting all kinds of fancy and expensive toys for my cats. They're almost always a complete waste of time, and they just have more fun with the box that they came in, because that's cats for you. There's this thing called a Flappy Bird, and I saw some adverts for it. I think it was on Instagram, and it looked really cool because basically it's like a bird on a string, but there's a little battery in it, and it's motorized, and it tweets and it flaps its wings. And cats love things that move. And I thought, yes, this is going to be great. Akazuki will play with this forever. No, she's terrified of it. She's the worst hunter you have ever known. So, yeah, neither, and Juicy wasn't a big fan of it either. So I had to get rid of that. I found when Nino arrived, because I got all kinds of stuff, a little scratch and post with it's got like a rubber string with a little ball on the end. Nino loves. I had all kinds of cat toys that were like fishing pole type things, where you've got like a stick or a wand, and then a line, and then something at the end, and the cats chase the thing on the end. And Akazuki and Juicy love that kind of thing. Nino destroys them. Every single cat toy or scratching post or anything that has something on the end of a bit of string, he bites through the string. He's destroyed every single one of them. He loves chasing after these toys, but when he gets them, he just instantly bites through the string. So you're left holding a stick with nothing on the end of it. He's a little menace. So now the best thing that they have, I've no idea where it came from, but I've got this sort of silk ribbon, and they love chasing that. And more importantly, Nino can't destroy them. But Nino almost plays with himself. He loves chasing balls as well. And he will quite happily, just like with a lot of cats, you've got to, and it's no problem. You get the pets because you love them and you want to play with them. But Nino can just entertain himself. You throw a ball and he will chase after it, and then he will swing at it and send it flying, and then he will chase after it, and he'll quite happily just make his own entertainment, just knocking a ball around and chasing it all over the place. He's such a good little cat. I don't understand why, because it's stupidly hard to actually rescue a cat. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that the fosters want to make 100% sure that the cat is going to go to a good home. And, I get it. You're not going to hold it against somebody for making sure that the cat ends up in the best possible place. But I applied to get Nino, and I was just a little bit too late. He'd already been reserved by somebody else. And then the person who was fostering Nino said, but we've just gotten another cat. His name's Charlie. The story of it. He was about 4 or 5 years old, and his owner, I can't believe this, his owner he was an indoor cat, so, he wasn't used to being outside, and his owner just threw him outside, shut the door, abandoned him outside, and moved to, and went to live with her boyfriend. And this poor cat, terrified, starving, a neighbour was feeding it, and then, so the foster who had already, who I'd applied to get Nino from, said, well, I've got this other cat. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll give him a home, no problem whatsoever. So I was going through the process of that, and then the person who had reserved Nino came to collect him, was with him, had him for 2 days, and then returned him. 2 days. I just don't get it. I mean, he's a fantastic cat. He's friendly, he's affectionate, he's reasonably well behaved, aside from, doing his cat things. But he's so affectionate, he's so friendly, he's no trouble whatsoever. And this person who reserved him, and obviously had gone through a vetting process with the foster to make sure that he was going to a good home, had him for 2 days and then sent him back. 2 days is not long enough to know whether or not the cat's going to fit in. And, unless there's a violent dislike going on, that you know is never going to get resolved. And I just refuse to accept that that is even possible with this little boy, because he is such a well-behaved little man. So I don't know what the hell happened there. And I ended up getting Nino, which I don't regret, because he is an incredibly good little boy. And I've already forgotten what the question is. Oh yeah, cat toys. Yeah, Nino will play with anything and everything. Although, like the other two, he's a particular fan of the boxes that anything and everything came in. But yeah, 3 cats. Is 3 cats too much? I mean, 1 cat is fine, and then, you get another cat to play with the existing cat. And then, well, the age difference between those 2 cats is a bit much, so you get another cat, similar age, to play with the other cat, so that the older cat can be left alone. I think 3's okay. Is 4? Am I turning into a crazy cat man if I get 4? I think... I don't think I could. Yeah, I think 3's fine. 3's enough. Any more than that, and you've got a problem. You really need to get help. Right. Anyway, next question comes from Aeon Kaisai. Dear Lord Jingaroo, are you going to replay Elite Dangerous? Yeah, well, so I believe we've already answered this one, haven't we? Are you going to replay Elite Dangerous, given that it released colonisation now? We could have an actual salt mine in the Milky Way. Yeah. And again, another thing, going back to not being restricted to 2 terabytes of storage now. I can install what I like. I'm never going to run out as well. I never thought I was going to run out of storage space when I had a 2 terabyte. But I believe I'm reasonably future-proof. So yeah, I'm almost certainly going to go back. And if it's worthwhile, I might end up producing videos on it. So that's Elite Dangerous. Because I really did enjoy mining in that as well. Although I have to admit, it didn't make for particularly enthralling gameplay because it's kind of slow. But there's something very therapeutic about just cruising an asteroid belt, and blowing asteroids apart, and then grabbing the bits inside. It's the sound effects, the audio. I think, and this is a very, very underappreciated aspect of game development, but the audio design in Elite Dangerous is absolutely amazing. It's one of those things. It's a bit like visual effects in movies. If they're done well, you don't notice them. But if they're done badly, you do. And the sound design in Elite Dangerous is really, really good. So yes, I think after I'm done here, I'm going to go and reinstall it and see what's new. Because I have 8 terabytes of disk space now, so I don't need to worry about running out. You'd also like to mention, have you considered network storage? Yeah, I have looked at that. I mean, the network storage thing would be good for if I ever... It would have been something that... I mean, I've got like external SSDs, and I spent like half an hour transferring all the videos over so I could reinstall them back on the new PC. And yeah, if you have network storage, you don't have to worry about doing that. But it's only really something, now that I have 8 terabytes of SSD to worry to store all my stuff on. Network storage would be a good idea for the next time I upgrade PC, but I can't anticipate doing that for the next 5 years. So it's the sort of thing that would have been a good idea a month ago, but I don't really feel the need for anymore. Excuse me. So, next question from Captain Cushion. Will the warships given broadsiders a paddling, but in real naval tactics we crossed their T, which gave massive broadsides? Was the original tactic flawed, or does will the warships not accurately... crossing the T was a thing in the Age of Sail, and to a lesser degree in, I say modern, 20th century naval combat, because like a ship of the line, a 64-gun ship of the line, all of the guns are in the sides, so if you're crossing the T of the enemy, they might have a couple of stern chaser guns on the bows, but like literally a couple, 2. So you're shooting 64 guns at them, and they're shooting 2 back at you. So broadsiding an enemy to get all of your guns firing was absolutely a thing to do. And then, of course, we had the Age of Steam and, dreadnoughts and so on and so on. And it's still a better idea to do more damage to them than they can do to you. So crossing the T in World War II naval combat was still... And there weren't that many occasions where it actually happened. Because, aircraft carriers were a thing. There were not that many occasions in World War II where surface ships actually got to shoot each other without aircraft being involved. Although, it did happen. Battle of Jutland, for example. But it still tended to be the case when you're talking about guns of these caliber, 14, 15-inch guns, bringing more firepower to bear is better than giving a big target for the enemy to shoot at. So in that respect, yeah, World of Warships it's not, I mean, let's face it, nobody thinks of World of Warships as a simulator. It's an arcade game. It's a very, very good looking arcade game that's influenced by naval history, but it's not accurate, not even slightly. So how we do? I'm going to have to make this one the last question, I think. This is from R. Ataruk, who is probably Turkish, based on that name, although I could be wrong. Greetings, I apologise if this is slightly off topic, but I was hoping to get some expert advice. When working in a subterranean salt mine, what is the most effective way to prevent excessive halite build-up on mining equipment? I've heard brine flushing works, but wouldn't that just accelerate corrosion? Oh yes, absolutely. I know what you're talking about. Yes, I have been effective enough to be granted use of an electric jackhammer. Also, do you ever plan to return to making Elite Dangerous and or Odyssey videos? I think I've probably answered that one fairly comprehensively. And more Ataturk stories, as is yes. Oh, he says he's not Turkish, he's Serbian. Oh, okay. Ataturk was, it was I can't remember his actual name, but he was I think the first president of Turkey, certainly post World War One. And he actually fought at the Battle of Gallipoli. He was a war hero, Turkish war hero, a massive, hugely popular and successful Turkish statesman, and he's revered in Turkey to this day. But yes, I do plan on. Well, I'm not sure about the videos. I'm definitely going to have a go of Elite Dangerous now that the whole jank of the original introduction of Odyssey, which is a couple of years old now, is sorted out, and the whole colonization thing and the expansion of the human bubble is now happening, and it's all player driven. So I'm definitely going to have a go. Whether or not I do any videos on it remains to be seen. And like I said, right after I finish recording this video, I think I'll go ahead, download the installer and get the thing actually on my, okay, I keep wanting to say hard drive. I don't actually have a hard drive anymore. On my SSD. I'm going to get this thing on my PC and have a go. Because I've invested a huge amount of time in that game. And it was only really Odyssey that drove me away, because Odyssey was kind of shit. But yes. So, Elite Dangerous, definitely going to be looking at that again. Maybe some videos, but it won't be for a while because my board is really full. Finish Indiana Jones. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is going to be keeping me going for ages. And I also have a whole bunch of indie games that I want to show you as well. Mostly demos. Because they're starting to do that again. This is something that they haven't done in years. It used to be the case that the first you heard of a new game coming out was when you would buy a PC magazine and there would be a cover disc, and that cover disc would be chock full of game demos. And then they just stopped doing that for some reason. And it was probably the AAA publishers that they don't want to show their hand early because they know that what they've got, that their new game isn't that good. But you're finding a lot of actual demos that you can download off Steam. And actually try it, and it's all indie stuff, and I'm just really happy that they're starting to do this again, because game demos were great. Obviously you're not playing the whole game, you're playing like the first hour or so, but I did that for House of, I can't remember what it was called, that one about where you play as the haunted house and you have to like persuade adventurers, you have to persuade adventurers to bugger off. That one was fun. There's another one called Into the Dead, Our Darkest Days, which is basically, does anybody remember This War of Mine from 11-Bit Studios, the makers of Frostpunk? It was a sort of, but I don't want to say it was set in Surrey. They didn't name the place where it was set, but there was a lot of Balkan Wars inspired stuff, especially based on where the developers come from. Imagine that you're in Sarajevo during the war, the 1990s wars in the former Yugoslavia, but you're not a soldier. You're just a civilian trying to not die and collect supplies and just stay alive from day to day. Into the Dead is that, but with zombies. It's in the zombie apocalypse. It's really, really good, and I'm desperately want to clear bit in the schedule so I can actually go ahead and show you this game because it looks amazing. I'll consider myself successful if I can actually get a video out on this before the thing is released, because this was another demo. You can play the first week in the game and it's just really good. So I've got all kinds of stuff like that I'm just itching to show you. And the second I'm finished with Indiana Jones, I think I'll be doing a couple of those, and then we'll crack on with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And on that note, because we're 45 minutes in now, I think that is going to be it for this particular episode of Mingles with Jingles and the Saltline Discord Q&A for March. So thank you to everybody who turned up. And if you're watching this as your Monday episode of Mingles with Jingles, hope you enjoyed it. Hope it's given you something to talk about in the comments. And as always, take care, and I'll catch you next time.